Amazing. All right. And just maybe obviously you can all hear me, so I'll just make sure that that's working as well. Yeah, you can. I know you can. All right, beautiful humans. So great to welcome you to Super Coach, the masterclass. All of my secrets, everything, well, they're not really secrets, they're just things that I do innately that that came to my attention, that I do these things innately as part of the coaching process that I've created for myself. And I realized that just recently. And that's why I wanted to put this masterclass together to share with all of you, because I know you're all extraordinary coaches within your own rights. I know you're all out there doing extraordinary things. I know you're here to make a difference. I know you're here to really impact the lives of those around you and support them to send those ripples out in the world as well. So, thank you for being here. I am going to go ahead now and I'm just going to share my screen and we're just going to launch right on in. So just give me a moment while I do this. Terrific. Let's make it nice and big. You just give it a second because I know it can be a little laggy. Great. Okay, I'm just going to close me down because I don't really need to see me as I go through this. So I'm just going to close that down now. So, welcome to the Secrets of a Super Coach, the Masterclass. So, I know many of you know me, but I also know that there'll be people watching this that don't know me. So, I'm just going to do a very, very brief introduction. So, my name is Jen Forster, or Five Star, as some people do call me, which I quite love. So I am an NLP trainer. I'm a master practitioner of NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy. And I've been working in the coaching space since 2008. So I first studied life coaching back before life coaching was even a thing back in 2008. I'm also the co-host of the Inside the Mind podcast with my beautiful bestie in mind stuff, Miss Ali May. And I'm here to help my students, the coaches that I work with, and my clients. I want to help them to harness the language of their mind to consistently achieve whatever they want more of in their life. So I have quite a unique approach, and it comes from combining science-based neuro-linguistic processes. Yes, I'm such a language geek, with ancient wisdom, something else I'm really, really passionate about. And it's kind of given me an edge, I've come to see. Uh, it's given me an edge when it comes to observing, identifying, and clearing negative emotions, limiting beliefs, and ineffective patterns of behavior, so that anyone that I have conversations with can literally take charge of their mind and therefore their results. So I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I just had a bit of a reflection on that this morning. I've created five businesses in my lifetime across 5 different industries. That's pretty cool. I'm the author of The Power of a Peaceful Woman. I hold an MBA, Masters in Business Administration. I've pioneered change for women abroad in Saudi Arabia specifically. And I've succeeded also as an elite sports person. I actually represented Australia, so you can ask me about that at some point. And if we're friends and stuff, and I know we are, you would also know some fun stuff about me too, like the fact that I'm a storyteller. I think I'm funny as fuck. I'm a projector in human design. I'm a Taurus. I have a little sprinkling of Sagittarius rising. I would draw weapons at dawn over a box of kittens. I love coffee, almond latte with an extra shot, if you please. I'm a tree hugger. And most of all, I'm probably known as being a very outspoken introvert who loves to wander the world. And my intention today is that you leave here with what I didn't learn in any of my certifications or any of my qualifications. And what I'm going to share with you has really elevated my coaching mastery and confidence. And so much so that I'm confident to put myself out there and and kind of stake my reputation on the work that I do. I'm really willing to hang my hat on what I do because I believe in it so much. And even more so, what I'm going to share with you today has really helped me as a mum to my kids, as a friend, and as a business owner as well. So, all right, let's roll on. So, first of all, what I want to do is I want to share with you guys a little story because I did say that I'm a storyteller, and this is a lesson I learnt from an orchid. So, does anyone here have green thumbs, or are you good with plants? You could probably just pop a Y in the chat if you're good with plants, or an N if you're not good with plants. I know, Teresa, you are very good with plants. Anyway, for most of my life, I had a belief that I was not good with plants. Why? Because I had plenty of evidence to tell me why that was. Sorry, I've got a little weird thing going on here with oh, there we go. Let me just clear that out of the way and clear that out of the way as well. I'm not sure how to clear this out of the way. Just give me, oh, there we go. No, that hasn't done it either. Oh, I see. I've got it. All right. So I'm just going to back that up and start again for you guys because I just had a very strange thing happening on my computer. So, so I was asking the question if anyone here has a green thumb and if anyone is good with plants. I was not. My whole entire life, I literally, any plant that came into my care, I would kill it. Literally, it would just die. And so a couple of Christmases ago, I was having Christmas with my daughter's partner's family. So trying to make a good impression on all the things that you do when you're visiting potential in-laws. Anyway, they gave me an orchid plant as a Christmas gift, and I was so thrilled to receive this orchid plant, and also in the back of my mind, I also knew I was going to end up killing this plant. Oh, and I knew that my daughter's partner would eventually see that I've killed this plant, and it was just such a thing. And I'm like, oh, of all the things, not a plant. Anyway, I brought the gift home. I brought the orchid plant home, and I sat it on my kitchen bench, and I wasn't really sure what to do with this plant. All I could think about was I'm sure I'm going to kill it. I'm sure it's just going to die. That's just what's going to happen to it. So I reached out and I reached out to my children's grandfather. He grew orchids brilliantly. So I reached out to him and I asked him a few questions and I Googled a few things and I did a little bit of research. And I applied what I learnt to this little orchid plant. And the beautiful flowers bloomed. And one day I was walking through the kitchen and I thought I was doing a great job, yay, go me. And then one day I was walking through the kitchen and I noticed that all the flowers were dropping off and dying. And I was like, oh, there it is. There it is, the start of the death of my orchid plant. It's going to die. For sure, it's going to die. But something in me didn't throw it out, which is what I would normally have done next. And after a few months, as it was just sitting there on the bench, looking like it had no flowers and wasn't going to make it, and I still just kept doing the things, I kept applying the things that Grandpa had told me to do. And one day when I was walking through the kitchen, I glanced over at this beautiful, this poor little orchid plant, and I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Oh, all righty. So let us dive on in, shall we? Shall we? Shall we? Let me just get this to move across. Just give me 1 second, guys. Just having a little bit of just can't get my slide to move to the next thing. Just give me 1 moment. Thank you for your patience. I think if I do this, yes. All righty. So picture this with me, if you will. So first of all, I think I've just seen in the chat, I think you're all here as coaches. At least I'm pretty sure you are, just looking at who's here. So as a coach, I want you to picture this. Picture this with me. You've just landed a new client. Woohoo! Exciting times. You've just landed a new client. Oh, we love that feeling, right? You know, you nailed the sales call. You've had the most amazing discovery call. They were just like, yes, I'm in. Yes, you're the coach for me. Yes. And it's go time. And it's the night before your first session. And maybe some thoughts are creeping in, like, what if I can't help them? Oh my God, they've paid me all this money. And what if I don't understand what their problem is? Or worse, what if our conversation goes off on a tangent and I don't even know what to ask next? And maybe you get a little nervous, maybe even a little anxious. And maybe there's even a little part of you that goes, oh, I can't do this. If that's at all familiar to you, give me a Y in the chat. If anyone has experienced that. I can see that. I get it, right? How do I know? How could I picture this if I haven't experienced it myself? I've totally experienced it too. So what I'm excited though to let you know is that what we're going to do over the next little while is I'm going to share with you the exact question to ask at the exact time so that you can always know how to guide yourself and your client through that. And I'm sure you agree that will be very, very helpful. All right. Let me just flip on over. So for me, in my experience with the coaches that are in my world and my students, there are 3 very specific challenges that they bring into my inbox. And especially as new and emerging coaches, and you know, even sometimes as coaches that you know, that have been coaching for a while, every now and again, you know, we can come upon a client that doesn't fit the script, right? Just doesn't follow the script. And so I condensed down the top 3 challenges that that most clients that I've worked with, at least, experience when they're working with a new client. And this is what they are. So generally, it's they're anxious before the session. You know, what if I don't know, you know, what to say or do or ask? You know, what if we get get to a point in the coaching process and we've gone round and round in circles and now we're on some kind of merry-go-round and, you know, blah, 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 I don't know what to do. The second is hidden doubts. Hidden doubts that emerge along the lines of, well, what if I don't understand the problem? What if I, you know, what if the client doesn't kind of, again, fit my script or fit what I understand to this point? What if I can't actually help them? And then the third is that round and round in circles thing. You know, what if there are multiple problems here? You know, what if one thing leads to another, and now the thing that I thought I was going to be helping them with is now not the thing that I'm helping them with. And that in and of itself can truly be the difference between a good outcome for our clients and a really profound transformative outcome for our clients. So I just want to share a few things with you here as well. So, and just let me know if hopefully that's not in the way. I know I've got a few things going on my screen here. So the first session. So that first session to me is where we really set the tone. It really is that defining moment where we can almost guarantee the quality of the transformation, the quality of the outcome, and the quality of the result. And why is this important? Well, it's important to me for these 7 reasons. So that first session is where we establish the confidence between the coach and the client. So I'm not just referring to confidence from the perspective of, are you the coach confident? But it's also from the perspective of instilling your confidence in the client, right? Because often, if we're in this self-doubt, if we're in any of those 3 things that I mentioned before, then we may be projecting a lack of confidence in our client to resolve the thing that they've come to you for. So that first session is where we really get to establish confidence in ourselves, confidence in the client, and confidence in the coaching process. The second really important reason here in that first session is setting up what we know in NLP land as ecology. Now, ecology is setting up the congruency of the coaching process. Now, just as a quick side note to explain what we mean by ecology in NLP, we mean we refer to what we know as an ecology filter. Now, that ecology filter is this good for self? There are 4 questions in it. The first question is this good for self? Meaning, is this good for me, the coach? The second is this good for others including family? Now, others will also obviously include your client. Is this good for society? And is this good for the planet? So I'm going to touch a little more on that in a moment. The third reason that this first session is so important is because this is where we get to establish accountability. Now, accountability for you as the coach, and yes, accountability for the client. One of the most important facets of coaching that I've come upon, and I used to not do this very well, is that sometimes the coach can become the rescuer or the savior of the client, and that is not our job or our role. So we want to establish accountability, and accountability for coach and client. The fourth is the results and the outcome. Again, the quality of the first session will determine the quality of the results, and the quality of the results, in my opinion, will also determine the quantity of referrals that client may refer on to us. I'm going to speak more to this in a moment. Future pacing. So we want to, in that very first session, whatever transpires in that first session is going to be future pacing how the rest of the sessions are going to go, right? So it's going to set the tone for the rest of the session. So that first session will future pace every other session you do with that client. Mastery. Of course, we want to be exhibiting mastery in that first session. We want to know what we're talking about. We want to know what questions to ask. Yes, we've got our scripts and processes, and it doesn't matter what modality we're talking about. My preferred modality is NLP and timeline therapy. However, this applies to any coaching modality. It really does. So having that mastery, and then of course that session, as I said before, that first session will also set up the quantity of referrals that you will receive from your client. Now, I'm just going to check the Q&A box before I move on. Carol has a fake orchid. I love that. Good. All right. I just want to check on those, on the doobie box. All right. So let's roll on. I want to move on from this. Oh, I wanted to share this with you. I did a little bit of research on coaching. So these are just some statistics, and you can see my source there at the bottom, where I retrieved this from the internet. So I wanted just to establish, where is the coaching industry right now, and why is this really important? Why is it really important for us as coaches to really establish ourselves in that first session in order to set up a really quality, a high quality transformation outcome and result for our clients? Well, the coaching industry is actually expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 6.7% between 2022 and 2027, which tells me we are right in this boom right now, which is a testament to the increasing demand for coaching services and coaches. And for me, I'm here to really, I really want to contribute to creating a ripple of high quality results for anybody who engages a coach. Because why is that? Well, again, it's the ecology, isn't it? Like, it's good for me. Is it good for me that there's an increase in need for coaching services? Yes. And how can it be good for others? Well, it can be good for others when I raise, my hone my coaching mastery and really elevate my confidence, because that's what's going to go out into society and the planet. So this is exciting times for us, guys. Really, really great news for us as coaches. Let us roll on. So this is what I am always listening for. So I want to kind of dive into a little bit of, what are we listening for? This is for you guys, this is the meat and potatoes of what I'm sharing with you today. So this is what I call the 3 S's. Now, we want to be listening for these 3 S's during that first session. For me personally, I'm actually listening for these 3 things from the minute an inquiry comes into my inbox, from the minute I first connect with somebody who is looking to engage my services as a coach. I'm listening for these 3 things. So let's start with that first one. So the story. So your hot tip here, your clients are always going to arrive with a story. They're not going to arrive with a problem. They're going to arrive with a story about the problem, because humans are very, very good at not facing their shit. We are all very, very good at that, human beings, no exceptions to that. It's not there's a thing called bias, the negativity bias. Now, which just simply means that humans are wired to focus on what's wrong. Right now, so why is that important? Well, it's important because when we can sense that there's anything wrong in our lives, what we'll do is we'll construct a little story so that we move ourselves away from it, because we don't move towards pain. Humans don't, just don't do that. Why? Because it's part of the survival, the evolutionary survival structure of humans. How do we survive? By not dying. How do we not die? We stay away from pain. So it's quite normal that your client will come to you with a story, and that is great. However, the story is the surface structure. Now, if you work with your client on the story, you will get a result for the story, but you won't get a result for the actual problem. So you'll get some kind of result, you just won't get a profound result. So I've got a couple of examples here that I want to share with you. Um, so what does this look like? So I had a client once who came to me wanting to start their own business. That's what they said that their problem was. Well, it wasn't the problem. That was the story about the problem. When we dug down into what was really going on for the client, and I'm going to show you how to do this in a moment, the problem itself was that they didn't trust themselves. Now, that's a problem that we can really work on, because that kind of problem will have cross-contextual impact in many other areas of their life, not just in the realm of work or business. Another client once came to me who was wanting to make more money. Now, that in itself sounds like a problem, but it's actually still a story, because when we dug down underneath why that was important for the client, I'm going to show you how to do this. What we discovered was that the problem was actually a relationship problem, not a money problem. And then I had another client once who came to me who was wanting to find the one, the love of their life. They've had a trail of failed relationships and they wanted to find the one. Now, when we actually chipped away at the story, which is taking us from the surface structure, here's what we think is the problem, which is the story, and we get to the deep structure, which is the actual problem, which will have tentacles in more than one area of our lives. What I discovered was that the real problem was that they didn't value themselves. So it's really, really important that we're listening for what is actually going on. And just again, as a hot tip, if you're taking notes, know always that it's highly, highly likely, unless you're working with an extraordinarily conscious human being, and even then, I would question and challenge it, because even as super conscious human beings, we can sometimes, very cleverly conceal our problems. So be aware that it's likely that your client will always arrive with a story first. And your job as the coach is to dig underneath. And I'm going to give you a whole cachet of questions for how to do that. The second S I'm listening for is secondary gain. Now, secondary gain, and I'm going to speak a little more to this. I've got some specific questions to help you unearth secondary gain, which I'll share in a moment. But secondary gain is, I'm always listening for, is the client congruent with actually letting go of this problem? Now, sometimes secondary gain just simply means that giving up the problem is actually more painful for the client than keeping life as it is now, even if life as it is now is not how they want it. Giving that up might actually require too big a stretch. It could be too much change, right, for the client to even conceal of. So it's really important that we're listening for that, because setting, as I said, creating congruency right from the outset is also about managing the expectations of the client. So the client wants to resolve the problem, and as painful as it is, it might actually be less painful for them to keep the problem. Now, if that's the case, and you're not tapped into that as the coach, then you're probably just going to be setting yourself up to be one of many coaches that weren't able to help them. And that's not what we're here for. We're here for quality results, because that will give us quality referrals, which will help us grow our business, which will help us really transform the planet. And the third S is self-responsibility. So self-responsibility is one of the biggest elements in setting up a robust coaching process for our client. Now, the reason I say that is because many coaches may arrive into a coaching space with some parts of them that are not necessarily clean, clear, and congruent. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is, if we have any people pleasing or any rescuing or any savior parts living inside of us as coaches, then what we're probably going to do is we're going to disable our client from actually getting any results that they are in control of. So it's really, really important that we are, in all cases and all ways, making sure that our client is fully self-responsible for the problem and fully self-responsible for creating the results. And I'm going to share in depth in a moment how we can be doing that. Now, I've got written there cause versus effect. So self-responsibility is usually attributed to cause and effect. Now, for those that um, don't know what I mean by cause and effect, in NLP, there are many versions of cause and effect. I'm speaking to the NLP version of cause and effect. Cause and effect just simply means that we are either getting the results we want, or we have reasons why we're not getting the results we want. Now, if your client has reasons why they're not getting the results that they want, or they're not shifting through their problem, then they are likely not in full ownership of the fact that they have created the problem in their life, and therefore they are also responsible or capable or powerful enough to come up with a solution for that problem. For us as coaches, that's not for us to do for any client ever, is to solve their problem for them. Our job, I often give the metaphor here that as a coach, we're like a tour guide for our client's mind. So when a tour guide takes you on a tour, it doesn't tell you, the tour guide doesn't tell you what they believe about all the stuff, right, that they're showing you. They just point it out. They go, here's a statue, and here's a painting, and here's a trail and a mountain, or whatever it is, whatever the tour guide's taking you to, whatever tour you're taking. And it's always up to us as the person on the tour to take our own meaning from it. Well, it's very much the same, as a coach. We can take them by the hand, we can grab the flashlight, the torch, and take them inside their mind. But it's up to us to point some things out via questions to help our clients to find their own meaning and find what it is that they have created for themselves inside their own mind. Okay, so any questions to this point? I'll just check in with everybody now just before I go on. Yes, Teresa, that's right. I have only got this set up for you to see the PowerPoint slide. I'll come back in visually at the end of this, just that you know that. So any questions so far? Or is maybe a better question from me would be, is this making sense? Is this landing for you? Are you taking some value from what I've shared so far? Great. Good, good, good. Jenny says, oh, okay. So good. Some of you can see me, some of you cannot see me. That's great. If you can see me, hi. If not, I really want you to focus on the PowerPoint. So it's up to you. And yes, it's making sense. Good, good, good. All right. So let's just roll on. Let me just make sure I've given you everything that I want to give there. Yeah, that's everything I wanted to share with you from that perspective. Let me just find my little. All right. So here's where I really want to dive into the keys to deconstructing any problem. So these are awareness, acceptance, action, and actualization. So let's start with awareness. So I think what I want to really share first and foremost here is that, to me, and this is through my experience of working with clients, just want to clear out the Q&A before I move on. Great. So to me, any problem, and remember, I'm not talking about a story. I'm talking about once we get down into the problem. In fact, this will help you to get down into the problem. There's a kind of like a line that we follow inside of a problem. Whether this is for you yourself, you can apply this for yourself, or as a coach, you can actually apply this for your clients as well. So there's a trail that if we're paying attention, and we are, we can always know exactly where our clients are inside of any problem. So the first is awareness. And the thing that we want to be asking here is the client aware of the problem? The second piece here is acceptance. So is the client in full self-responsibility for A, the creation of the problem, and B, also its solution? Now, awareness and acceptance to me are where we can identify what's going on for the client in their problem inside of the coaching session. Now, to truly deconstruct a problem and move a client through the process of the problem and out the other side, we also require action and actualization. Now, those two keys happen outside of the coaching session. So they happen though with you as the coach still guiding that, right? So action is the tasking sufficient to support the conscious slash unconscious integration? So what I mean there is sometimes when we become aware of the problem and then we move into ownership of the problem, what then can happen is we may have a conscious awareness. Okay, I can see this is where, I'm playing a role in this. I can see where this is occurring for me. I can see how this is happening. That's a conscious awareness of the problem. Now, to create change, that's only one side of the coin. So the opposite side of the coin is the unconscious integration. Now, the work that I do, and some of you do as well, I know, I utilize timeline therapy for the unconscious integration. However, we can create conscious unconscious integration with tasking as well, doing things that support the client to create new neural pathways and build those new neural pathways so that they become the dominant neural pathway outside of the coaching session. And then the actualization is the timeline sufficient and realistic for the client? So this is where we're setting those expectations. Now, what's really important to be aware of here is if somebody has had a problem that may have been formulated in their childhood through programming, conditioning, beliefs, culture, high school, parents, if somebody has got some kind of conditioning in place as a result of that, then that may have been there for 30, 40 years. So we need to be realistic and set realistic expectations for our clients around supporting them in that conscious unconscious integration and making sure that we're offering sufficient tasking and sufficient not support or hand holding, but handing back actual out of the session practices, and I'm going to share these with you, out of the session practices that will support the client to build new habits and behaviors, right? So, I'll extrapolate on that as we move into the actual questions that we would utilize. Okay, what else have I got here for you? All right, so let's move into awareness. So I want to share with you now the questions that will help you as the coach to get the client from the surface structure into the deep structure. So these next lot of questions are designed specifically to help the client and help you, the coach, bring everything from the deep up into the surface where we can see it, because we cannot change what we cannot see. We cannot we cannot change what we cannot see. We just, it's impossible to do that. So awareness is really important. So these are the questions that I've put together. Now you can, of course, take a screenshot of this or take a photo. However, what I've done is I've created a 2-page PDF of everything I'm about to share with you, so that you can keep it as a, you can print it out, you can create it as a double-sided document, and you can keep it on your desk, right? Something really helpful when you're working with your clients. So the first is awareness. So what specifically is the problem? Now, that's a great question to ask. However, if we only ask it once, where are we in the process? We're probably going to stay in the surface structure. Why? Because we already know that the client is likely to arrive with a story about the problem and not the problem itself. So, what I like to do here is just continue to ask the next question at least 3 to 4 times, sometimes more. So, what specifically is the problem? Why are we here today? And the client will begin to tell you. And then you might say, and what else? And then they'll tell you something else, and you'll say, and what else? And then they might tell you some more, and then you'll say, and what else? And you will keep going with that until the client does what I call empty the buffer, right? They're going to empty the buffer. We're going down, 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 from the surface all the way down into the deep structure. So that very first question, I can sometimes spend a half an hour on that very first question, just simply by asking, and what else, and what else, and what else? I want to get down to the real issue. And it will usually be something like, it'll be something that will be cross contextual in more than one area of their life, right? Because here's the thing we know about surface structure problems. If we could solve a surface structure problem consciously, we would. We'd just solve it, right? So we know that if it's a recurring issue that's going on, then it's likely there is a root to it, and it will be cross contextual. So if we can solve it at the depth of the problem, then we're probably going to get a far greater result across the entirety of our client's life. So that's the first question there. The next question that I really love here, and you might ask all these questions, you might cherry pick and ask these questions, you might bounce around and ask these questions in whatever order. All of these questions are designed to elicit awareness. So I've grouped them all here together for you, and to me they're really great questions to have in that first onboard, and not the onboarding call, in the very first session when you start to do the coaching work with your client. These questions, I would literally ask all of these questions at some point or another. So how do you know you have this problem? That is a really great awareness, because the client now, at that point, will need to dissociate and look at their life and have a look and see, well, oh, yeah, how do I know I have this problem? And so they'll share some stuff with you there. How specifically is that the problem a problem for you? Great question. So sometimes, when we're so focused on what's wrong, what we're not actually able to see is why or how, or what's happening. The next question, how do you do it? The problem. This is a brilliant question for, again, eliciting awareness, bringing awareness to, and awareness is, a great metaphor for me for awareness is, it's like being on a movie set. So when we're on a movie set, there's not just one camera filming a scene. There's usually 5 or 6 cameras filming a particular scene, because they want to capture the scene from all angles. Now, those angles to me, when we're looking at a problem, are the different awarenesses of the problem. And we want to get all of this up to the surface, before we start doing any kind of interventions, before we start doing any kind of any modalities, before we, do any sort of process with our client, we want to get all of this stuff up to the surface. So, how do you do it? The problem. When do you do it? Another great question. How do you know it's time to do it? That is such a brilliant question, because what that does is it works with the submodalities in the mind. So, how do you know it's time to do it? Submodalities is the picture that the unconscious mind has, and the unconscious mind operates in, is symbolic. It operates in symbols. So it will have a symbol, or like a flashcard, just as another way of saying this, a flashcard that will pop up so that it knows it's time to do a certain behavior. So when you ask that question, how do you know it's time to do it? The client's got to go to the moment before the problem. Very, very useful information as a coach. How long have you had it? Another great question for awareness, right? Maybe that's where the client will see for themselves exactly where this problem started. And it may not even have anything to do with them. Awareness. Was there ever a time when you didn't? This is a brilliant question to ask. Was there ever a time when you didn't? This will also help to bring awareness to when the problem's actually integrated itself. So powerful. And it also helps the client, that another reason that's such a great question is because it helps the client to see how much of their day is not actually about the problem. Because sometimes when we get into a problem and that's all we focus on, then of course that's all we see. So it also helps the client to again disassociate and step out of what's happening and look at it through it at from a different perspective, a different awareness. When was the very first time you experienced this problem? Go with the first thing that comes to mind. Another great question for helping the client to get to the root cause. We really want to be doing this. What other events have happened since? So now we can ask for, here the client might tell you, oh, well, I can remember something when I was in primary school, or I can remember something when I was at school camp, or I can remember something when I was in my 20s. Any of those events that they share with us are going to help us to see a pattern. Sorry, I'm looking at the next question because that's what's going to happen. So in each of these events, so those last two questions, in each of these events, which are literally just memories, what is the relationship between the event and your current problem or situation? You are guide. Can you see? You are the tour guide, guys. You are showing the client what's here and what does the client see for themselves, because it matters not what we see. It matters what the client sees for themselves. So these questions are designed to help the client go onto the movie set of their problem and look down every camera barrel to see all of the different perspectives. And that last question there, tell me about your childhood in relationship to this problem. Well, that can be a really great question at this point, because now the client might actually be able to see a little pattern for themselves. Yeah. And that might actually be able to help you get to the root cause. So all of these questions are designed to bring the client's awareness to the problem, not your awareness to the problem as the coach. Yes, that's helpful. However, it's far more important that the client gathers their own awareness, because, some of the most transformative results I've supported my clients to find for themselves has just been me asking one of these questions. And then they see something they've never seen before. Boom. That's an epic transformation. Epic transformation. Yeah. So that's awareness. So let's move on to acceptance. So when I say awareness, this is something I wanted to share with you as well. When I say awareness, what I actually mean, I just like the fact that all these words started with A. And as a little side note, this was something that my unconscious mind knew long before my conscious mind understood what this means. because when I wrote my book back in 2018, I wrote it in 2018, it published in 2019. If you've got my book or you've read my book, you will see that the 4 chapters of my book, which are the book's about living powerfully and peacefully, the 4 key sections in that process are also awareness, acceptance, action, and actualization. So my unconscious mind already knew this. How cool is that? To me, that's just like one of those, you can't make this shit up things. However, when I'm referring to it in a coaching perspective, by awareness, I mean self-awareness, and by acceptance, I mean self-acceptance, right? Coming into self-acceptance, self-responsibility. So these are the questions I would ask once I've got everything up to the surface, once the client has full awareness now of the actual problem, not the story about the problem. I move into these kinds of questions. So, what is the reason for wanting the problem gone? Now, that's a great question because it presupposes that the client is aware that they have created a problem, because it presupposes they want it gone. So it's it's presupposing that they're aware they've got it. So that's a very clever, using a little bit of linguistic hypnotic language pattern there to support the client. Again, we want the client to own this problem. We do not want to own it for them. We want the client to own the problem themselves. So, what is the reason for wanting the problem gone? Great question. How is it possible you don't have it resolved now? By it, I mean the problem. How is it possible you don't have it resolved already now? Whoa. Such a great question. How will you know it is no longer a problem? Now, that's also another great question for being, these questions presuppose. That's what's cool about these questions. They all presuppose that the client is now aware that they have a problem. Not that the problem belongs to someone else, not that it's someone else's fault. Full awareness means now the client is also at cause, right? So not actually being in effect. This is being in self-acceptance is like galvanizing cause. It's blowing up all effect. Yeah. So how will you know it's no longer a problem? Well, this is, sorry, let me just say that again. How will you know it's no longer a problem? I've already asked you that. Now, this next question has got quite a bit of linguistic finesse in there. However, when you ask it, the client will probably first look at you and go, huh? Can you say that again? This is great. Why is this great? Because what we know might be happening, if that's occurring, is that the client may be hitting what we call in NLP a neurological boundary. So if you think of a problem, if you think just picture in your mind a box, like a square box. Now picture inside the box a little dot. Now the dot is the problem. Now, the problem currently is contained in the client's mind inside a box. So, what we want to help the client do is to blow the boundaries of that box so that the problem can dissolve. Because whilst it's being held in, with language in the client's mind, it's being contained inside that box. So, this next question may show that box for the very first time, and may also help the client to blow the boundary of the problem. So the question goes like this: this is not a perfect world, but if it was a perfect world where you would be the creator of your own experiences, when did you choose to create this problem and why? Be okay if your client gets a little stumped by that. You could just say, just try it on. Just try it on. Would you like me to ask it again? And they'll probably say yes. And there's no right or wrong answer here, guys. It's really important that you know there's no right or wrong answers to any of these. What we're wanting is what is in the client's unconscious mind. because that's where the goal is. That's where the problem is rooted, right? The story is the conscious mind. The problem is in the unconscious mind. Next question. What will you see, hear, feel when the problem has totally disappeared? Now, why is this an important question? It's an important question because we all have a dominant, and not, this is not finite, but at certain times in our lives, in certain areas of our lives, we may be more visually oriented, we may be more auditorily, which is hearing oriented, we may be more kinesthetic, which is feeling, we may be absorbing information through our visual senses, our auditory senses, or our kinesthetic senses. So, depending where and how this problem has been created by the client, it may have been created visually, it may have been created auditorily, or it may have been created kinesthetically. So, this question just opens up the possibility of what it might, look, sound, or feel like when the problem has totally disappeared. Is the resolving of this problem just for your benefit, or does anyone else benefit? So, again, this is getting into self responsibility. If the client is resolving a problem because it's, the husband wants something to be better, or the boyfriend's not happy, or the mother in law, is constantly pissed off at them, if they're doing it to gain something outside of themselves, then it's probably going to not end well inside of the coaching process. So we want the client to always be in full cause and not in effect. So that's what these questions are designed to do, to ensure that the client comes into full ownership of the problem and the solution for the problem, and that it's not outside of them. For what purpose? For what purpose do you want this problem resolved? That's another great question. Again, it's going to help you to make sure that this is just going to support the client, and there's no external gain. What will you gain if you resolve it? Right? Again, these questions are presupposing that the client is aware that they created the problem. What won't happen if you get it? Now, these 1, 2, 3, 4 last 4 questions are what we know in NLP land to be Cartesian coordinates. They may seem like the same question. They are not. They are each of these questions are going to access a different part of the client's unconscious mind, and each of these questions also will play a role in blowing the boundary that contains the problem. So, what will you gain if you resolve it? What won't happen if you get it resolved? What will happen if you get it resolved? And what won't happen if you don't get it resolved? Now, they all sound very similar. They're not, they're all different. And they will, again, it's a different camera lens for the client to be looking down. I just see another question there. Let me check that. Yes, amazing, Carol. Love the acceptance questions, with them also starting to bring a bit of attention to a different, vision. Exactly. Yeah, that's the whole point. So these are the questions that to me are designed that really support the client to be in total ownership. Because if the client is not in ownership of the problem, then they're going to externalize the problem at some point, and it's still going to become something that's outside of them. And if anything that's outside of us, we have no control over, right? We only have control over what's occurring inside of us. Okay, let me just move on. So that's acceptance. Now, I don't know if you can see that. Let me just slide that down along the bottom there. I don't know how it's showing on your screens. I'll just move it away from mine. So action and actualization. I've put these together because these are what go on outside of the coaching process. So awareness and acceptance are questions that are asked inside of the coaching process. Action and actualization, to me, take part outside of the coaching process. So when, for the in the 168 hours in a week, if you see your client for 2 hours in that week, what are they doing for the other 166 hours? Are they regurgitating old patterns and programs? Are they reaffirming beliefs that we've just brought to the surface? We want to give them some tools that's going to support them into actually, again, galvanizing the change in their world. So let's start with what have I even written there? Whilst awareness and acceptance, yeah, are addressed inside the coaching session, action and actualization are focused on outside the coaching session. Both of these keys are what contribute to conscious mind, unconscious integration. So the conscious mind and the unconscious mind integrating. So the question. So when a client, if a client comes to me between sessions and my inbox is open for my clients between sessions, I have boundaries around that. That's not what this masterclass is about. However, the way I operate is when I work with a client, they have access to my inbox 24/7, and I will generally answer their questions and whatever between certain periods of time. We set that up. However, if I have a client come into my inbox and we've done some really great work, and I can hear that they've dropped back into a story, or a challenge, or they've locked horns with something or someone, and they're triggered. What I usually will ask them is, are you focusing on what you want? So the simplest of questions. And what does it do? It's such a power question, this question, because what it does is it immediately mitigates you climbing into the story and trying to solve the story. And what it does is it puts the client back into full awareness and acceptance, and accountability for focusing on what they want. Because once they begin to focus on what they want and start to take actions towards the things that they want, then they're likely to move through the problem much more easily. I hope that makes sense. Tasking and accountability to tasking. Now, I've got to say, years ago, I wasn't really the coach that offered any kind of tasking to my clients. Now it's an integral part of the coaching process, because it's how the client can literally coach themselves, but in those 166 hours that you are not with them, or 167 hours, whatever it is, that you are not with them. And these are the kinds of things that will help to build those new neural pathways for your clients. So, I often use the driving the car example. It's such a bloody great example. When you first learn to drive a car, where, I don't know about you, but for me, I would look at the gears, I would look at the clutch, I would look at the brake, I would look at everything was so clunky, right? And over time, as I continued to drive every day, I got a little more confident. My neural pathways grew around being able to move the gears and clutch at the same time. Everything started to shift and change. But if I had just learnt to drive once and then didn't drive again for another, 10 years, then I would still be in that clunky phase 10 years on. So tasking and accountability to tasking is the actualization process. It's how we actualize the change from coming out of the problem into something new. Now, these are just a couple of examples. It will be determined on what is the client working on, right? What is the problem? What is the problem that they're dealing with? For example, if you were working with someone who was wanting to quit smoking, well, me personally, I wouldn't work with someone wanting to quit smoking unless they did 2 weeks of tasking around smoking leading up to the process of working with them. Why? Because the tasking would establish accountability and self acceptance to wanting the problem gone. without me having to step in and do anything. So tasking can be a really powerful pre-process, and it can be a really powerful post-process as well. Um, so things like daily journaling, reading pages from a book, keeping video logs, doing some kind of future self visioning, creative writing. It will be very much determined by you and your client. And I can't more strongly recommend how important it is to apply tasking. Now, tasking also needs to be followed up, right? If you're going to set tasking and then you don't follow up with your client, then there's no accountability there. So I usually, put weekly increments in while I'm working with them, and I check in on their tasking, because in doing the tasking or not doing the tasking, it's likely to bring some more stuff up to the surface for you to look at. Okay. Let me just see here. I think that's just, oh no, I know there's some more. There is some more. So this I wanted to give some attention to all on its own, because to me, this is a part of the coaching process that again can be the thing that destroys self responsibility. And it's something as a coach we absolutely need to be across, and it's secondary gain. So it's one of the three S's. Now, secondary gain can appear at any point during the coaching process. It could appear during it could appear during a process. It could appear during the intervention. It could appear during it could show up at any point. It could appear during the awareness section. It could appear during the acceptance section. We want to really be paying attention for any secondary gain. So as again, this refers to the hidden or unidentified. Let me say that again. This refers to the hidden or unintended benefits that the clients may derive from maintaining their current problems or behaviors. These are almost always conscious for the client, and so as the coach, we should be attentive to signs such as, unconscious. I know I said conscious, and my unconscious mind went, no, that's not how it works. They are unconscious. Secondary gain is very unconscious for the client. And so, as the coach, we really need to be attentive to signs such as resistance to change, repeated stories, or a reluctance to explore alternative solutions. Now, I did a Facebook Live the other day. I think it was on Instagram actually, and I said there are three things that I'm listening for. Things like, yeah, but. When I hear yeah, but, there's resistance there. And if there's resistance, there may also be some secondary gain. If I hear, oh yeah, I know, I've just shared something as a coach maybe, and then the client goes, oh yeah, I know, and blah, 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 some story. I also know there's some resistance going on there, and repeated stories. So if the client continues to tell the same story, but in two or three different ways, there is also a reluctance there. I can also recognize reluctance to move through the problem. Now, if there's reluctance or resistance to move through a problem, there is probably some secondary gain playing out, where for the client, it's unconscious as well, guys. This is not a conscious thing. It's very unconscious that resolving the problem is going to really stretch the client into some unknown space. And so they may be very resistant to that. It might mean that it could mean, for example, that it may require some very difficult conversations that they've never had before. It might require them to dissolve their people pleaser. It might require them to end a relationship or leave a job, or it could require something very big to occur in their life. And so the idea of dealing with that could be too much for the unconscious mind. And so um, being aware that they may put some, there may be some secondary gain there so that they don't do that. And that just means that you as the coach gets to be aware of that and continue to step them through it, right? So questions to move out of secondary gain. And remember, whenever we're moving out of secondary gain, we're moving into self-responsibility. Secondary gain is like effect, self-responsibility is moving into cause. So what's the purpose? So these questions are very helpful with secondary gain. So you can, and you would, of course, have rapport with your client at this point, be in rapport with your client. So you would say something like, what's the purpose of keeping the problem? Now that might be, really a surprise question for your client, because they might say, well, I don't want the problem. And you might say, well, no, I understand, yes, I understand you don't want the problem. Yes, and I understand you don't want the problem. And if you were to keep it, what would be the purpose of keeping it? And then just see what comes through. What would be possible if you let go of the problem? Now, that's a great question. Sometimes when we're so contained inside of a problem, the box around the problem, sometimes when we're so contained in that, we've never conceived of what's beyond the box, what's beyond the boundary of the problem. So that's a great question to ask as well, to help them move through this. And if you let go of the problem, what would you choose instead? Brilliant question. And if you let go of the problem, what would you choose instead? So we're looking at what is possible outside of the problem, beyond the problem. And what is it that you are pretending to know? What is it that you are pretending to not know to know this about the problem? So that's another great question. We're just opening up new thought processes for our clients, helping them to see something that they haven't yet been able to see for themselves. Okay. All righty. Has this been helpful? Please let me know if this has been helpful. Amazing. Any questions, guys, so far? We're probably almost at, we're almost at the end of the presentation. So the whole point, Tonya, hell yes, I love that, Tonya. So good, so good. So the whole reason that I really wanted to share this with everybody is because, and with coaches, and you know what? Not even just coaches, understanding, for me, doing my accreditations and certifications, even when I first studied life coaching back in 2008, I was given lots of information about the process and the processes. I didn't really get for myself why. Why is this important? What's actually happening here? What's the purpose of this particular part of the process? And so I kind of figured that out for myself along the way. I started to kind of figure this out myself, and that's when I really understood that every problem is following a process. There is this process that every problem, when we're in a problem, we're somewhere in one of these four spaces inside of the problem. Now, also what's important is the problem, this process isn't linear. It can be, and you could also find that your client might double back, might sort of drop back into not being in self-responsibility. So again, you just bring the questions back in. You might, bring out one or two of those questions to help your client get back into, being in full self-responsibility, which is full acceptance. So yes, this might be a linear process, and it also might not be, depending on where your client is inside of moving through the problem. But the point of this is, for me in creating this and sharing this, is to support to support you, the coach, to know why you're doing what you're doing and where your client is and why it's important for them to for you to be able to ask these questions at a specific time to help them not eject themselves from the problem, but stay in that beautiful problem process. And, with congruency and with intention and purpose, you're literally guiding them. It's like I said, it's like you being the tour guide and walking them along this, inside their own mind with a torch and just shining the question is like all these questions are like your torch as a tour guide. You're just shining a light on different things for your client to be able to see, to help them not distract, deflect, or deny what's real right now in their world, and help them once and for all get off the problem go round, and get on with their life. Now, why is that important? Well, as I said, the quality of the coaching process to me, you know this wasn't in my presentation, but I feel like I want to share it. I love that there are so many coaches out there, teaching us to grow our businesses and grow our coaching businesses and become, six-figure coaches and all the rest of it. Hell, I'm all in for that. I really am. And I identified in my own coaching process, the thing that was in the way of that for me was not the business side of things. It was my confidence in my own mastery of what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. Because now, knowing coaching the way I know it now and teaching it the way I teach it now, I am so confident about putting myself out there. As I said at the start, I will hang my coat on anything that I've shared with you today as being the most congruent thing I can do for my client. I know when I follow this process, my clients are going to get an extraordinary result. And if they are getting an extraordinary result, they are also go on to refer clients to me as well. Yeah, and at this point, around 90% of the people I work with go on to refer or do other work with me within the first 6 months. Now, that's such a great way for me to continue to grow my business. Yeah. And so that's why I wanted to really bring this to coaches, because I think, sometimes we distract ourselves from, with the shiny stuff, the six figures, and, maybe where we could really focus some of our attention is on our mastery and becoming really masterful at what we do, so much so that we're so confident that we would walk into any room at any point, or we could sit across the table with anyone at any time and know that we were, just by asking one or two questions, able to, help someone get a profound shift in their life. So that is very helpful. Yes, loving the questions. Amazing. So that's literally bringing me to the end. I do just want to share a couple of other things with you very, very briefly. I just wanted to share. So what now? So, for me, the most the greatest growth I've received for myself as a coach is staying in the coaching conversation. And so surrounding myself with people where I'm in this coaching process, either as a coach or as a participant in a room or a space where this level of coaching is going on. So this is, if you want to stay in that, then this is how you can do that. And there's no pressure on my part for you to or not to do. I know some of you have already done some of this work. And of course, anyone who watches this that's on the replay as well, wanted to let you know. So something that's been brewing for me is what's landed in my body as coach school. All of the parts for that haven't quite landed yet, though I feel like it will probably become some kind of 3-month container to that's less content focused and more hot seat and process focused. So we will be workshopping coaching problems, either yours or your clients, live in a some kind of container. All the pieces haven't landed as yet, but it will be coming in 2024. So if you want to know more about that, then just stay following me. That's it. And look out for that as it begins to launch. The second way is Ali Mae and myself, have our Unleash 2.0 two-day transformational experience coming up on the 9th and 10th of December. I know Tonya was in the room for that. I know how much she valued that. And Tonya, I think you're coming back again. I can't remember, but I think you are. And I think Carol might even is thinking about hopping a plane and coming. I sure hope so. So there are two options there for joining us. You can just join us for the 2-day experience, or you can, there is a VIP option that includes a 3-month laser coaching container as well. The landing page for that will be available for me later today. And so if you want that, just reach out and I can send it to you. And then, of course, Ali and I have our NLP and timeline therapy practitioner accreditation training. Whether you are wanting to become a coach or whether you are wanting to do it for your own personal development, for me, NLP practitioner training as a 7-day training is one of the most robust personal development trainings that you can do. And bonus, you actually do get certified at the end as well. So if any of that is of interest for you, if you want to stay in this kind of coaching, because this is not the norm, that's what I've come to know as well about my work, and having worked with people that did NLP 20 years ago. They kind of say, they often tell me that this doesn't sound like anything that they learned. And I think that is because I have applied my own life experience to this coaching process. And for me, I do always want to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And my intention is always for my client and the outcome for my client. I'm focused on my client, and I never used to be. I used to be focused on other things. Now it's very different. So that's how that's how you can stay connected, or just stay connected on social media, however it feels good for you. So that's kind of it for me. Thank you for being here. Before we go, I would really love to know what your biggest takeaway is before you jump off. I would love to know, your biggest takeaway. Just pop it in the chat. I'll give you a moment to do that. Or if you have any questions before we close out, if you have any questions, just let me know. Usually we do this live, but I did want to do this as a webinar today. So, all right. Secondary gain reminder. Yes, Jenny, so important. The secondary gain reminder. It's happening much, much more with our clients than I believe we're all aware of. Yeah. And it is the difference between you becoming a coach in a long list of coaches that weren't able to help them, and you being the coach that actually has the strength and the fortitude to guide them very powerfully through that process, and getting them out of secondary, removing the secondary gain, at least shining a spotlight on the secondary gain so that they can, because again, at that point of secondary gain, where would we go in the coaching, in the problem process? I would go back to awareness questions, and I would go back to the acceptance questions to dissolve the secondary gain. Yeah, amazing. So good. That is much easier to implement than I was making it. Great information, Jen. Thanks. Yes, the whole point of that I wanted to share it this way, Teresa, was to break it down and make it, have this be such a simple process, so we know why we're doing what we're doing. Great, Carol. I think how much you can gain from a couple of deep questions. I have had clients, Carol, that have literally transformed 40 years of shit with just one of those questions. They saw something they've never seen before, and then, of course, for me, I then, um, are very much a stand for timeline therapy to go in and resolve you can do it without doing timeline therapy. For sure, you can. For me, I don't know why we would want to do I want to take the hard way or do I want to take the easy way? Well, the overachiever in me used to want to take the hard way. Now I'm all in for give it to me as easy as I can have it, please, which means, yeah, cleaning up the unconscious counterpart in the unconscious mind with timeline therapy. Tonya, you can't help your client with their issues until you are clear of what the issue actually is and the underlying structure. Heck yes, Tonya. And the truth is that we'll always get our clients a result. Please know that. I want you to all know that you are always going to get your clients a result. The more we can, be really ecological and empowered with our questioning and listening for where our client is in the problem process, the more robust the result, the more transformative the result will be. So, if we work the story, if we work a structure, a surface structure problem, a surface structure story, sorry, we'll get a surface structure result. But if we work a deep structure problem, we will get a profound deep structure result for our client. And yeah, that's what I'm here for. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So I have one last question because I am the question queen. Does anyone want to know what happened to my orchid plant? All right, let me just tap that back. I'll just go back there. I realize I just bopped out of that. Oh, now let me just pop it here. So what happened to my orchid? So the thing that I noticed in my kitchen that day, if anyone would like to know. So what I noticed was that my orchid had begun flowering. What? My orchid began flowering. And what I realized in that moment was that it was actually my beliefs about not having a green thumb and not knowing how to keep an orchid alive were just that. They were my beliefs. And you know what? Those beliefs, they weren't even mine. I don't know where I got them from. I just know that they weren't mine. And what I came to understand was that when I stopped focusing on how crap I was, and instead turned my attention to what my orchid actually needed. And of course, did some research, spoke to some people who were growing orchids successfully, and then applied what I learned. My orchid knew what to do. My orchid did the rest. Yeah. And surprise, surprise, my confidence around plants and orchids and all things green thrived. I have an apartment filled with plants now. And the thing that I love about this lesson from an orchid is it reminded me, it's actually a bit like coaching when you come to think about it. All right, I'm going to stop my screen share and just let you all know. I can see my screen is strobing a little bit, so that's great that my screen wasn't. I don't know if it's been strobing the whole time. Roses are next for me. Yeah, close the loop, Jenny Somerville. Yes, you guys know it. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on live with me. The replay will come out. Let me just stop recording. Just going to hit that now.